Well, hello everybody. It's going to be a fun show today, and it has to do with a movie that so impacted California wine it may have changed wine history. And we are going to hear from someone who may know better than most. She is the co-founder of Silver Oak Cellars, Bonny Meyer, and her new book, the love affair. Well, let me back up. It's Perfectly Paired. It is the love affair behind Silver Oak Cellars. And I don't want to give you any hints about the movie, but you'll know in a moment when we talk to Bonny. I'm Andy Asher. I'm here at bloomerboomer.com, and we have been talking to Bonny over a period of weeks now about California wine. And you can catch all of the shows on Bonny's webpage here at bloomerboomer.com at bloomerboomer.com/Bonny. All right. November is almost here, and we are getting ready to launch at least 2 new live seasons. More details as we get closer. Check out all the shows and programs on our live host link on the website. Boomer TV is live streamed on most social media platforms several days a week and available to watch at bloomerboomer.com. And of course, like and follow us on your favorite social media to hear more about what's coming up. And now, let us talk with Bonny Meyer, co-founder of Silver Oak Cellars, and her new book, Perfectly Paired, The Love Affair Behind Silver Oak Cellars, and the movie that changed the course of a popular wine. Hello, Bonny. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. Good to be here with you again, Andy.
Yes. Well, listen, before we jump in to this, I have a short film clip trailer that we can let everyone in on, and in case they don't know what we're talking about. So let me see if I can grab the right one here.
Well, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any Merlot! They want to drink Merlot, we're drinking Merlot. If anybody's first, well, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any Merlot! They want to drink Merlot, we're drinking Merlot. If anybody's first, well, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any Merlot!
Well, Bonny, what an unforgettable segment that is from that movie, and what it did for Merlot, or what it didn't do for Merlot. It's almost a story in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they teach now, interestingly enough, they teach something called the sideways effect in marketing these days in colleges, the sideways effect. And it's generally when a fictitious character influences society in extraordinary ways. And that statement about Merlot was kind of earth-shattering for the wine industry here. There were a number of really nice Merlots, a number of wineries making Merlot, and all of a sudden, people didn't want to be, who wants to be, a loser and order Merlot? So people stopped buying Merlot because of that statement. Can you believe it?
No, in a way I can, because listen, I quite honestly, I don't have the confidence in my taste buds and my palate and all that to really be able to say with confidence about things. Now, and I know, my My wife has a fantastic nose, and she doesn't even have to drink anything to know, what it's like. I'm nowhere near that. And so your confidence level is shaken because, even though you may like that wine and then everybody else is telling you why they shouldn't, it just blows you away because I really liked Merlot a lot. And now it still affects my choices.
Well, let me say something that might change your mind about that, Andy. You have confidence in whether you like lasagna. You have confidence in whether you like marmalade.
Yeah.
You know that you like particular dishes, and you know the restaurants that you like to go to, and you have real confidence in your choices. Wine isn't any different than food. We know what we like. We know what we like, and it may be different than what somebody else is like, but they're ordering something different for dinner,
Well, I love
right?
that. I love that explanation. I really do. And thanks for doing that. And as you said, the repercussions on the wine industry were significant, weren't they?
They were huge. So people stopped ordering and buying Merlot. And the sad news about that is that many producers stopped making Merlot, and then the price of the grapes went down. And today, my son Matt's been on a couple of these shows, and I was talking with him earlier. He said today there are many Cabernet producers in Napa Valley that would like to buy some Merlot that for blending materials. So Merlot is very Cabernet-like, but it tends to be softer and it ages faster. And so as a blending wine with Cabernet, it really adds an immediate softness and ageability to a cab. And people around here have all torn out Merlot. In fact, we tore out a Merlot vineyard 3 years ago because we could not get enough money per ton for our Merlot to make it worth growing. And that's happened everywhere. So today, still, the prices for Merlot are about a third of price for a Cabernet, for example, per ton.
Now, I
So
was.
that continues on. When was Sideways out? Like
Oh gosh, relatively
20,
speaking, it was a long time ago. So to think
yeah,
of the impact that one movie
yeah,
had is pretty amazing.
right, right. And then so in that movie, the character Miles, who was the wine expert, he had his kind of goofy friend along with him, and he was explaining to his friend all these things about wine, including, how never to order Merlot, but he talked about the beautiful attributes of Pinot Noir and why you'd want to drink them and buy them, and how he loved Merlot. So I found out a little bit about the author, Rex Pickett. He wrote the book, and he eventually helped produce the movie. So Rex Pickett was very much like Miles. He was an author who hadn't done well, and in his, kind of kicking clods, and just not knowing what to do with himself, he started going to the wine country, and he started in Central Coast, and he started hanging out at Sanford Winery, and became friends with Richard Sanford, the founder, and they produced some pretty nice Pinot Noirs. And over time, they were friendly enough that Rex was invited to stay in their guest house at the winery. So he spent a lot of time at Sanford Winery drinking Pinot Noirs. And he admittedly said it was how he could afford to do that. He was a starving author.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is how he became familiar with those wines.
It would be interesting to find out how if he ever expected that that would come from that reputation would come from that story, I'd die to find out. But I was,
I
huh?
right. I mean, he probably never imagined he wanted to have a successful film.
Right.
He never would have imagined that then, as a result of that film, uh, all of a sudden people stopped buying the Merlot and they started wanting Pinot Noirs. And there weren't very many on the market at that time. And in fact, Matt says there were about 2,000 acres of Pinot in California. Today, there are 60,000 acres.
Yeah, I was that's well. Let me ask you this. I did I did my research, okay, and
Yep.
I read in the publication Vine Pair that Merlot is second only to Cabernet in popularity in the U.S. Now, does that sound right to you?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's certainly popular, but I can tell you there's almost no Merlot made today. Now, it's certainly not like it was 20, 30 years ago.
Oh, so because it was around that time, at least for me, that I became aware of Merlot, uh, and so it sure brought that to a rapid end. But that was when I was becoming, aware of that wine and that grape. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's amazing. Um,
So,
yeah, I don't
so
know.
in the movie, Miles at one point says about Pinot Noir that the reason he loved it is because it was thin-skinned and sensitive, kind of like his character. Um,
It's a
and
great
that
quote.
Yeah, isn't it? And it commonly really came into its own when it was in certain tucked away corners of the world. And a Pinot Noir grower had to be patient and really nurture these these delicate grapes. And the flavors are haunting and brilliant and subtle. So I asked Matt about this, knowing that most of that is true. At least, his opinion of Merlot, I would don't want to, honor, but these statements about Pinot Noir were pretty much right on. And Matt agrees. He said that the Pinot Noir is extremely site sensitive. To really make good Pinot Noir, it has to be grown in very specific places, generally cool places and foggy places. So in California, close to the coast, are places that get lots of fog. And when it's slightly warmer, it'll be a little bit more tannic, and as it's cooler, it will be lighter in color, and will just have very subtle complexities that um, that are really thrilling when they're put together well. The the bad thing that happened after this movie is Pinot Noir got so popular and everybody was asking for it. The wineries and grape growers that shouldn't have been making Pinot Noir or growing Pinot Noir started to. And so there was a flood of really bad Pinot Noir from every wine growing area in the West Coast, so California, Oregon, Washington, and the Pinot Noir just got flooded, and there were, 1 out of 10 that were actually excellent.
Well, let me ask you a
Uh,
question that pops to my mind by you talking about how the popularity in certain grapes go up and down. Do you think that in California that it's plateaued out? In other words, are we more stable, or do you think we're still going to see these changes in tastes and all that, or maybe nobody knows the answer to that?
well, I think there's two answers to that. American public is pretty fickle. Uh, we all of a sudden there is a movie or a song or a food that's all of a sudden just over the top popular. And sometimes you shake your head and you go, I have no idea why that's trendy, but it is. And so anything that's trendy or popular goes in and out of fashion. In fact, you can call it fashion instead of, as opposed to classic. So in clothing, there's fashion, and then there's a classic look that never seems to die. And
Yeah, I totally agree with that in fashion, and so that in a way applies to growing as well.
it does. The thing that makes grape growing and winemaking different and is challenging is we need to figure out what's going to be popular. If that's what you're chasing, 4 years ahead of time. It takes at least 4 years for a new vineyard to mature enough to make good wine.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and so we have to anticipate that. So there's always a lag. There's all this demand and there's not enough grapes, and then there's an oversupply, and then it takes a while for those vineyards to actually be torn out or converted over to another variety.
Well, not to get off course too much, but I guess I want to find out now. In the image we have, or in France, is you get these big, thick vines that have been there for generations, that never change. Now, do we look at things differently here, or is that also the case in France nowadays?
It's a little bit of both. When I was in Bordeaux last June, and I didn't see any really old vines. I didn't see any real old vines. What's happening here in the Napa, I can speak more about the Napa Valley than anywhere else because that's where I live. In the Napa Valley, we are now officially a monoculture. We've talked about this in earlier shows. There were prune trees and walnut trees and fields of pasture, all kinds of things back in the 1960s and 70s. But now I look out and it's just a sea of vines in every direction. And because we're a monoculture, we're more susceptible to diseases, viruses, and little root critters, like a root louse, like phylloxera. We're more susceptible to these things than if it was more of a mixed agricultural practices. So we end up needing to tear out our vines when they're about 40 years old because they're so diseased. They're not producing well anymore. And so people actually are anticipating that, and they're tearing them out before they are badly diseased, anticipating that. So I think that's more of an American way of doing things. I would imagine that Europeans in general would just wait. I keep hearing about Australia that has 100-year-old vines and how special the wines are from those vines, but we don't have anything approaching that anymore. But let me answer that the other part to your earlier question. Yes, we are approaching a place of stability. We know when a place has been growing grapes and making wine for a considerable amount of time, it gets clearer and clearer and clearer, not only what grapes to plant, but where to plant them and how to cultivate them. And so when I look at, as contrast, when I went to Oregon about 20 years ago, there was a lot of the wines that I tasted were pretty bad. And over time, they've learned how and where to grow their grapes and make their wine. And they just have gotten better and better. In fact, I shouldn't say 20, it was probably 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah, you lived there, right, for a while?
Not in Oregon. No, I never
Oh.
did. But I was there just at the beginning of when they were starting to make wine.
Is that where Justin
And it was pretty
Justin
bad
up there or
because
not?
everybody was
No?
experimenting.
Oh.
Sorry?
Was Justin up in Oregon?
No. No,
Okay.
we were just visiting people and visiting the burgeoning wine areas
Oh.
up there. But the same thing is true here, Napa Valley, Monterey, Central Coast, there, Santa Cruz, wherever it is in California, and wherever it is anywhere in the United States, we're all getting a little more expert every year about how and where and what to grow and to produce. And so everybody's honing in on really what works well.
Yeah. Well, were you surprised how much people were turned off from Merlot just from, a bad press and a comedic love
Oh,
story?
I thought for me, it was really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really sad. It really hit some of the wineries here hard. It hit them hard, and it was sad to me to see this great variety being lambasted, just to make a joke, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just to be funny, and see people in the real world struggle and see these wines taken off the market.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. I'm sure because I was thinking too. I'm sure the film didn't hurt the popularity of wine. In fact, in many ways, it must have been some form of good publicity. That you can't. I guess that as they say, any publicity is good publicity.
Well, yes, but I have to say I have a personal thing against the wine expert.
Sure.
In like Miles, that makes anyone feel like they don't know enough
Well,
and
yeah.
not have confidence in their own choices.
Well, I think coming from you, that's really good to hear. Well, Bonnie, this has really been a good series, a good episode, and it's really been fascinating. Anything else that I left out?
Well, you know what? I think I want to say I have right next to me a book that my husband wrote years ago, and I'm going to put it up to the screen here.
Yeah.
Plain Talk About Fine Wine by Justin Meyer, and the reason it's pertinent. He wrote this book as a basic wine appreciation book, but the whole reason is to give people confidence in their own choices. So as a parting word for this episode, and for you, my friend, you might want to pick up a copy of Plain Talk About Fine Wine. You can only get it actually on my website right now. It's not on Amazon.
Okay.
But it's a classic. And the whole thing is have confidence in what you like, and don't let anybody else intimidate you or tell you not to like something. Just try different wines, enjoy them, and create your own path.
Good words of wisdom and advice as we close out, and I appreciate it, and I think what a great book to have written for everybody, because you got to have the confidence in what you like. So, hey, Bonnie, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Well, again, I want to thank you for watching Bonny Meyer and her book Perfectly Paired: The Love Affair Behind Silver Oak Cellars. And if you like what we're doing, please follow us and like us on your favorite social media, and get familiar and become part of Bloomer Boomer. And until next time, so long.
If they want to drink